Mark, you remember what I mentioned to you earlier about contacting the lawyer? That still holds true, okay, just so you're aware.
Okay.
If at any time we're talking, you want to contact the lawyer, you can do so at any time. I'll take you to a phone. There's something else I want to tell you, Mark, and that's that there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that you're involved in the disappearance of John Altinger. No doubt in my mind at all, Mark.
Why?
On October 3rd, 2008, it was a dark and chilly night in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Guy Tederolt was getting ready to leave his home and take a short drive to meet up with a woman named Sheena, a woman he had met on a dating website called Plenty of Fish. What Guy did not know was that Sheena didn't exist at all. That night, after a few weeks of casual conversation, flirting, and generally getting to know Sheena better, Guy was given directions to drive to a 2-car garage in the suburbs of Edmonton. Red flags immediately popped through his head. However, he decided to proceed and take his chances in hopes to meet up with Sheena that night. As Guy arrived on the dimly lit side street, something wasn't sitting quite right. However, he brushed that feeling off because Sheena had stated that it was easier to get into her loft through the garage. So in turn, he pulled up to the garage and got out of his vehicle. Guy hesitated once more, looking at that dark garage with no lights within a few blocks, but again, he inched forward. As Guy walked around the garage, completely oblivious to the horror that awaits him, he knocks on the door, but no one answers. Suddenly, he hears footsteps quickly ascending towards him and suddenly feels a sharp burn to the side of his body. Guy immediately falls to the ground, realizing that he has been tasered from behind. In complete panic, he begins to try and get up, but is then dragged by his feet into the garage. Guy is now in complete shock, in a dark and musty garage. He looks up to see his assailant in a hockey mask, holding a gun pointed directly at him. The assailant then grabs Guy and places him in a chair in the middle of the room, a tarp covering the floor. That's when Guy noticed a small table a few inches away with knives, a saw, duct tape, handcuffs, and other deadly weapons sitting on top of that isolated table in the corner of the garage. The assailant then places the gun point blank to Guy's head and begins to wrap duct tape around his eyes and mouth. In that moment, Guy was now convinced this was no robbery and something far more sinister was about to take place. Without hesitation, Guy fought back, realizing that the gun was fake in the process. He threw the assailant to the ground, ripped the duct tape off his face, and ran towards the door, screaming at the top of his lungs. His assailant then fled onto the streets of Edmonton, Alberta on that dark and cold night in October 2008. In complete and utter shock, Guy Tederolt escaped that night with a few bumps and bruises. Tederolt never reported the attack to the Edmonton Police Services, a regretful decision that will haunt him for the remainder of his life. Johnny Brian Altinger was born on April 28, 1970, and by all accounts was a quiet, kind, and compassionate person throughout his lifetime. Johnny grew up in the suburbs of Edmonton. He had a fascination of technology, paintball, and motorcycles. According to family and friends, Johnny was also seeking out a relationship and frequented such sites as Plenty of Fish and Lava Life to find that partner he had long been searching for. On October 10, 2008, Johnny stated to a friend that he had met someone off of Plenty of Fish. According to his friend, Johnny was extremely excited that he had plans to meet for dinner and a movie that night. When asked where the two had planned to meet up, Johnny stated she didn't give an address, more so instructions to meet behind a garage in the suburbs of Edmonton. Johnny's friend immediately got a terrible feeling about the meetup and asked Johnny to call him before he got there and to give him the address. Johnny called his friend that night and stated that the woman was not there. However, he did come across a young man in the garage who stated he was an aspiring filmmaker and showed him props for a film he was working on. Later that night, Johnny's concerned friend received a text message stating he was going back to the garage to meet the woman. According to his friend, that was the last time anybody spoke directly to Johnny Altinger. A couple days later, a few of Johnny's close friends and family all received alarming emails stating that he had met the woman of his dreams and that the two were heading to Costa Rica for a couple of months and not to worry if they didn't hear from him for a while. Red flags began to burn as something about the email did not sit right with all who read it. Family and friends began contacting the Edmonton Police Services for help. That's when detectives were alerted of the possible abduction or murder, but they were also skeptical because to them, it wasn't out of the possibility that a man in his 30s could just hop on a plane with someone he barely knows. However, the Edmonton Police Services did search Johnny Altinger's home, and what they found instantly raised suspicion. Detectives noted that they came across empty suitcases in the hall closet, and inside the bedside drawer was Johnny Altinger's passport. Detectives now knew they were dealing with possible foul play. Detectives immediately sprung into action and began going over all the details, possible outcomes, and speaking with family and friends. The detectives also spoke with Altinger's employees, who stated that they had received a resignation letter and that there was no address on the document for a forwarding address for sending a final paycheck. To police, this raised even more questions, and a homicide investigation was soon launched by the Edmonton Police Services. A few days later, after speaking to one of Altinger's friends, the detectives were informed of the garage, as Altinger had texted his friend the address the last time he had spoken to him. Police immediately drove to the location and came upon a man by the name of Mark Andrew Twitchell inside of the garage. Twitchell stated to police that he had indeed met Altinger a few nights prior and that Altinger had sold his vehicle to him for the price of $40. This story only raised more suspicion, and suddenly, Mark Edward Twitchell was their primary suspect. With no evidence that Altinger had indeed left the country, police couldn't arrest Mark Twitchell without any concrete evidence. Police then attempted to obtain a search warrant to the garage. However, they were denied due to no evidence that a crime had indeed occurred inside or around the premise of the property. Without a search warrant, detectives then decided to bring in Mark Twitchell to the station for some questioning. During the interview, Twitchell provides a statement to police indicating that he was shooting a film inside of the garage and began telling the police the process of filmmaking, completely trying to avoid any questions relating to how he obtained Altinger's vehicle. When police questioned Twitchell about the vehicle, Twitchell stated that the vehicle was at a friend's house, but the keys to the vehicle were in his car and that the police could have the vehicle since it was owned by a missing man. Detectives then pressed Twitchell into a confession as his story was not adding up, and they then told Twitchell that they would be seizing his vehicle since the keys inside of the vehicle were stolen property. With this little loophole, police now had some sort of evidence against Mark Twitchell and obtained search warrants to his home and garage.
Yeah. Now, so back again, so we're talking about back at the garage, and you're saying that the 10th was the last time that you were at the garage.
Yeah.
And you can say that absolutely for sure.
No, it was either a couple of days before or a couple of days after that I dropped off some cleaning stuff. It was like a Tuesday, Wednesday, something like that.
Tuesday or Wednesday, you
Yeah.
dropped off some cleaning stuff.
Yeah.
Now, when's your next plan to shoot there?
Oh, it's not decided yet.
Not decided yet.
It's still up in the
So
air.
there's nothing planned for that garage.
No.
You live in St. Albert.
Yeah.
You'd be concerned about dropping off a few cleaning supplies there at the garage when nobody else is there. Sometime between that weekend and it had to be done right away.
Well, not necessarily right away. The way that I do it again is on a list. So I would have had like a long list of line items of stuff that I'm getting done that day, and it just happened to be one of them. So it's like a stop off, drop it off, and then go.
Now, what sort of cleaning supplies would you have at that place then?
Paper towels, like stain cleaner, gloves, the usual stuff. Just because we deal with this. When you do anything that's involving like suspense thrillers or anything like that, and you want to have something that looks like blood on the screen, we use this mix that's like a corn syrup with food coloring in it, because it looks really good on camera, it has the right consistency and everything, but it's sticky as hell. It gets everywhere, and it's a nightmare. And last time, it got all over the chair, got all over the floor. It's like ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, and that was really my thing, was just because then everybody's grabbing stuff and moving it over, and every time they do, they rub up against it and get it all over their clothes, and it's sticky and annoying. So, just a matter of keeping that stuff off of there and clean, and not having to deal with that, because we spent, the problem with an untested effect. This thing where we were, the achieved shot was running a sword through a guy who was sitting in a chair.
Yeah.
And so the way we did it is we just had like the actor sitting in the chair and then the other actor pretending to hold the sword in him, and then we go back, lock the camera off, it hasn't moved, shoot this, or we take the same color shirt that the guy in the chair was wearing, put like a Ziploc bag full of this corn syrup there, and then just, you know, boom, put the blade through it so that it comes out with the corn syrup on there dripping. And then they have to digitally take that, put it onto our original shot so it looks like it's coming through the guy realistically. And it's this complex setup, and we spent like 2-3 hours on that one thing because we hadn't actually tested it before or set it up prior. So, I mean, it's kind of like learn trial by fire and figure it out as you're going along, but it turned out really good. I think it'll look good once it's all done. So.
Sounds kind of unique. I mean,
Yeah, but it's a huge mess too. Like again, you know, you're dripping stuff everywhere. You try to kind of curb that as much as you can, but it happens. You're walking back and forth and things get moved around. So.
Yeah. Now, so you were doing quite a bit of that sort of stuff in the garage, that kind of shooting, where there was like blood effect and that. So what other supplies would you have there that would be needed for that kind of thing?
Well, it depends what you mean by supplies, because there's supplies and props and a lot of other stuff. A lot of that stuff that's in the garage was there when I rented it. Stuff that I got just for the shoot. There was like this, you know, kit full of knives that we were going to do, where we were going to do like a reveal shot, show the guy like opening this kit that looks all menacing and everything, kind of put that into a montage. What else? Like the usual duct tape for the guy sitting in the chair, duct taping him up. There's that stuff. The sword, obviously. Well, there's two swords. One that like looks all glorious and cute on camera, and then the other one that's just a stunt one that's more stain resistant that we use to like dump all the syrup on and everything. Some clothes, prop mask, you know, stuff like that.
When detectives inspected the garage, they came across a kill room. Handcuffs, a single-place chair in the middle of the garage, surrounded by blue tarp, as well as one single hand-painted hockey mask. Things were not sitting right with detectives, and now believe something bad has happened to Johnny Altinger. One theory that detectives had come up with was that Mark produced and sold snuff films, and Johnny Altinger was a victim of such a crime. Detectives then began questioning the film crew one by one. The one thing all the crew members had in common was the last film they worked on in the garage. The premise of the film was about a killer who would lure his victims off a dating website. When detectives obtained a copy of the film, what they found was indeed just a film with actors, fake blood, and a fake murder taking place within the garage. When detectives searched Twitchell's home, they noted that they came across a lot of materials relating to the show Dexter. Twitchell had books, magazines, DVDs, posters, all related to the show. Detectives then seized all hard drives and laptops from within the home, and what they found would break the case wide open. When detectives inspected Mark Twitchell's laptop, they came across a deleted folder titled SK Confessions, which stood for Serial Killer Confessions. Inside this document was the written confession in explicit detail to the murder of Johnny Altinger. It was stated within the document that Mark had stabbed Altinger in the gut several times, then dismembered his body. It was written as a script for Mark Twitchell's next short film. However, it also contained there was a previous victim that was attacked but got away. Detectives immediately set their sights on finding this individual to come forward, as finding that victim would prove that the SK Confessions file was indeed proof to a detailed confession. Edmonton police then brought this case forward to the local media, and a story was broadcasted.
Friends say on October 10th, the night Johnny went missing, he went to go meet a girl that he had connected with online. The address allegedly took him to this Millwoods garage. He called friends shortly after he arrived, saying that there was a man at the garage with a replica gun who was making a movie, so he left. But a short time later, the girl contacted him online again, and he returned to the garage. That was the last time anyone heard from him.
The following morning, detectives got a call from Guise Tederol, who came forward and provided a statement that was the exact same story that was in the SK Confessions document.
He must have grabbed me, and we started struggling. Oh, and I'm guessing during this, that's when I'm like, okay, I gotta try to fight. And that's something I missed, actually. I tried punching him too, but I was so weak. And I remember trying to punch him, and I know I can't hit this mask because that's gonna hurt my hands, so I'm trying to punch him in his chest. And I'm thinking, man, why am I so weak? And my punches aren't, I feel like I'm not doing anything, and it's like my punches are so weak. And then, so I realized, okay, I'm punching him, I'm not going to do anything. He's way bigger than me, and can't do anything. So then I started trying to kick him in the but I tried a few times doing that.
Did you get him?
No.
Did you hit him?
No, couldn't.
And did he hit you?
No.
What about kick you?
He tried, but I swerved as well.
Mark Andrew Twitchell was immediately arrested for first-degree murder for the statement provided by Tederol. DNA evidence of Altinger's blood was also found by forensics within the garage, but police still did not have a body. Within the SK Confessions, it was stated that Altinger was dismembered and dumped down a sewer drain in the west end of Edmonton.
After 3 long weeks of waiting for any word from Johnny Altinger, police arrested a man Friday they say is responsible for his disappearance and his death. 29-year-old Mark Twitchell, husband, father, and independent filmmaker, charged with first-degree murder.
It was definitely planned. It was definitely, he had put a lot of thought into it, a lot of work into it.
A search warrant was also executed on Twitchell's home in St. Albert. Meantime, comments posted on Twitchell's Facebook site paint an eerie picture. On July 11th, a posting says, "Mark is set to evil." Then on August 15th, another entry says, "Mark has way too much in common with Dexter Morgan."
We have a lot of information that suggests he definitely idolizes Dexter, and a lot of information that he tried to emulate him during this incident.
Police took Twitchell back to the garage this afternoon as they continue their investigation. Incidentally, police say Twitchell had just finished filming a short film there about luring a man online and murdering him.
18 months later, detectives received a call from Twitchell's lawyer. Johnny Altinger's body was dumped 2 blocks from Twitchell's parents' home. During the trial, the jury all agreed that Mark Twitchell lost touch in both reality and fiction. Johnny Altinger was brutally stabbed, beaten, and bludgeoned to death, then dismembered and stuffed into garbage bags, then dumped down a sewer drain. It took all of 5 hours of deliberations to convict Mark Andrew Twitchell of first-degree murder. When the verdict was read, Johnny Altinger's friends and families all cheered and clapped that justice was finally served in the wrongful death of their son, brother, and friend. When Mark Twitchell was asked whether he would like to make a statement to the family, Twitchell stated, "Nah, I think I'll pass on that." For Johnny's family, it was a sense of relief that this whole ordeal could finally be over with, but the pain would always linger in their hearts. Johnny's mother told the media after the trial that there is no more joy in her life. It was all ripped from her. But the one joy that she still has is that the telephone company hasn't reassigned his phone number and that she still calls to hear his voicemail every day.